Live. Peter Kearns, how you doing today?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing good. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. So give people here a quick second to get on screen with us. We're going to cover some really cool topic today. Actually, you know what, Peter, what I thought was really cool was when we announced that we were going to cover this topic, I actually had a couple people from Resonate that said, hey, this was the coolest topic that you guys covered at Resonate.
Awesome.
And for people that don't know what Resonate is Seller Labs conference. You got a light right above your head that
See that?
seems to be
Trying to adjust.
Yeah, what is that? Is that the sun coming in?
That's called the sun, and it does circle the earth, and it's on its way into the window. So, yeah,
we're going into full blood science experiments here.
Look at that. That's bad. There we go. I'll keep moving it as the sun goes. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
All right. So so people that are interested, the conference that we're talking about is called Resonate. It's a Seller Labs conference. Peter gave a part of this presentation at that conference. It was very well received. We've essentially developed this presentation a bit more since that conference. And you know, because we've presented on this a couple of times and we've used this. So Peter, why don't you, for people that don't know who you are, why don't you tell people kind of who you are, and then we'll jump into this topic.
Sure. My name is Peter Kearns. I'm Vice President of Client Solutions at 180 Commerce. We're a Amazon consulting brand management company. We do full-on, hands-off-the-wheel brand management for brands that are looking to focus on their product development and let us deal with their Amazon business, manage their Amazon business, grow their Amazon business. I've been in the space for quite a while. I was with Amazon for about 4 years. I was a marketplace leader there. I ran the team for new seller recruiting in the consumable space, so health and personal care, beauty, grocery, baby. And basically, our team would work closely with category managers to grow the selection in those categories, bring on new brands, bring on new resellers to ensure that the Amazon customer could find the product that they're looking for when they're shopping.
Awesome. And, just to give a little bit of a plug here to Peter, I actually just left lunch with a client that Peter has. And essentially what we are going to do here is essentially what you did for this client who has 14,000 SKUs. And so this is like real practice, right? This is how you look at a catalog and you determine what your potential for that catalog is. It's not just like randomly trying to say, this is how much I want to do in Q4. It's saying based on what you have and in the order that you have it, will you accomplish those numbers? So I think this is some really cool stuff. And we're going to kind of dive into it. We have a little bit of a kind of a formal presentation today. And I think you've got my slides up on the screen, right?
Yep, we can see them.
And then what we're going to do after we go through some of this is we're going to go through a live example, give everybody kind of an opportunity to not just talk about this in theory, but to see how this is actually put into practice. So, where this all kind of comes from is a question that both Peter, you and I both get, right? So people kind of come to me and they say, your tool doesn't work. Ignite isn't working. I'm not getting the sales from sponsored ads that I want. And we dig into the customer and we actually find that they don't have a traffic problem. They actually have a conversion problem. Yep. Or vice versa. They're working on optimizing their listing, but their listing's actually pretty well optimized. They actually need to work on getting more traffic to their listing. And so as an Amazon seller, you've got to kind of start off and figure out what problem you have, whether you have a traffic problem, whether you have a discovery problem, whether you have a conversion problem, or whether you have a review problem. And then you can figure out how to solve it. Yep. And so that's really what I've asked Peter to kind of come on today, because the answer to this question actually sits right within the data that you have as a seller. And so it's not necessary for you to guess at what this is. The data's there for you. So Peter, I'm going to let you kind of take this over and take us through the presentation, and then we'll take it. We'll back it out and walk through an example.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I think it's really important what Jeff said in terms of recognizing you've got a traffic problem, you've got a conversion problem, and to stop guessing. And the details or the data in Seller Central, there's a lot of really good tools out there to aggregate data, but there's a really good report in Seller Central that's not going to cost you any extra money to get. It's your detail page sales and traffic by child ASIN report. And really what that report is going to do is you're going to be able to download it, and then you're going to be able to filter it. And so you can start to understand how your catalog is performing. And every part of your catalog or your catalog performs at a particular level. And we break it down into 3 segments: the head, the torso, and the tail. And so what I'm talking about here is the head section of your catalog is that 20%, the Pareto principle, the 20% of your listings that are driving 80% of your revenue. So your head catalog, your head selection of your catalog is high traffic, usually high conversion, and high sales. And that then leaves the rest of your catalog, which is the middle and the tail. And the important thing is to recognize is how your head selection is performing, so that you can start to look at your torso and tail selection to make really good strategic decisions about should you continue selling this inventory. And if you are going to continue selling this inventory, what do you need to do to start driving sales? What do you need to do to start driving conversion? And I think it's really important to recognize that selling on Amazon it's becoming pretty technical. And there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of tools that are being developed. There are a lot of things that you didn't have a couple of years ago that you do now, especially if you're a brand owner. Enhanced brand content, headline search ads, sponsored products, things like that. And the reality of it is that you need to make sure that you understand the basics about what's going into the performance of your catalog before you start spending thousands of dollars on marketing campaigns, advertising, enhanced brand content. Because the last thing you want to do is optimize a listing and realize that it was actually converting at a 65%. The problem is that you just didn't have any traffic.
Yeah, so, and I think, Peter, I think that's like the main point for people. And I guess let's just ask a question to the audience, right? Let's make sure they're awake and they're listening. Like, have any of you ever downloaded and looked at your business report to identify your catalog and to look at it in a strategic manner? I just left lunch with about 12 e-commerce managers, and I asked that question. And funny enough, the only one that said yes was the one who's working with you, which completely makes sense, right? So is this something that you have done? Because I agree with you, Peter. I think that there is a ton of content and information and a lot of directions you can go. Lightning deals, enhanced brand content, optimizing your listing, back-end keywords. Where do you spend your energy? Sponsored ads, headline search. Where do you spend your energy? And I think that what's critical is that we understand where to spend our energy and where to spend our time, so that we're doing that the most efficiently. It looks like a lot of people are saying that they're doing it either daily or every 2 weeks. And Kevin, we're going to actually get into the name of the report, where to download it, and stuff like that. So,
once upon a time. Okay, so the reality is your catalog is not, every ASIN doesn't perform at the same level. And so you need to understand the torso, the tail, the head selection, and how they perform. And from there, you need to realize that you've got to have a strategy. You need to use that data to drive that strategy. And so what am I talking about here is, and we can probably jump to the next slide, is...
You want to go into the strategy first and then come back to this?
Sure. Yeah. So this is where you get the report. We're going to dig into this. So what you need to start.
Wait, hold on. 1 second. The report. Let's just make sure we don't gloss over this. We'll come back to this so you guys can see this. But this is the actual report that we're going to be using to understand the strategy that's being explained. Right. So. So why don't you go into real quick what the report is, and then we'll come back to this after we talk about the strategy.
Sure, no problem. It's the detail page sales and traffic by child item report. It's really important to get the child item because if you have variations, you're going to want to see how those individual children are performing underneath the parent. Because, for example, if you've got a color variation, the black or the blue or the gray is probably going to be your most best performing ASIN. And so you're going to want to see how those other colors are performing just so that it's really important because that way you can start to make inventory strategies, FBA decisions based on the individual child performance as opposed to the aggregate of the parent.
And you want to look at this for both 30 days and 90 days, right?
Well, it depends on some of these people today that are listening. Some of them do it daily. Some of them do it weekly. I think that it's important, depending on how large your catalog is, to look at it at least monthly. Usually the first thing when people ask me, they come to me and say, hey, my sales are down. I say, okay, well, what's going on with your data? How's your traffic? How's your conversion? Because it's really important to have an understanding. No, there is not a comparable report in Vendor Central. Sorry, the questions that pop up here are kind of distracting me.
Yeah, just ignore them and I'll come back to them at the right time.
Okay, cool. It's really important to have a baseline of how your catalog is performing because if there is a sudden decrease in sales, it's going to come down to a couple of things. You're either getting traffic diverted away from your ASINs to another one, your competitor, your conversion is dropped, which usually means that there's been a negative review or the ASIN somehow the images are broken. Or if you're a reseller, you're losing buy box, so competitive sellers have come on board. So if you don't have that baseline, if you don't know that my ASINs run with minimum of 1,000 sessions per month at a 30% conversion, you don't really know how to start looking at your business and understanding where the decreases or increases are coming. So I try to get it. You can download it. You can change the frequency, the time frame. So you can go in there and you can say, I'm going to look at it it defaults to the trailing 30 days. You can pull 30 days, 90 days. If it's me, what I do is I pull down the account, I pull down this report, and I look at it monthly. And I have it saved every month. The beginning of the month, I go and I pull the data from the previous month. And then I just put it into a tab. And if you're a wizard with Excel, you can pull it in, and then you can build some pivot tables, and you can start to see month over month changes, increases or decreases. And you can actually pull in what I call, your movers and shakers. So your movers are the ones going up, your shakers are the ones going down. And you can start to see declines in traffic. And if you're monitoring this on a regular basis, you're going to get out in front of it before all of a sudden your business is down 50% because you were able to start to see some changes. And the reason why it's really important is to look at the child ASIN is because it is a child SKU that's going to be making the impacts on your business. So the reports, the detail page sales and traffic, you get it in the business reports, and it's great. Session percentage. Sessions is the first column. It's and you're not necessarily interested in page views. You're interested in sessions. Sessions are a unique IP address. So a customer that looked at that ASIN once in a 24-hour period over the time frame that you are pulling the report. So if you're looking at it at the default, it's going to be in the trailing 30 days. Page views are going to be the same IP address repeated. So if I was looking for a pair of shoes and I couldn't quite make my decision and I went back I looked at the detail page once and then a couple hours I went and looked at it again, that's going to be one session, 2 page views. Then there's buy box percentage in here, which is really important for anybody that has competitors on your ASINs. You really want to have a good baseline of how your buy box percentage is. And then the one thing that this report does not do is report your profit. So I know some people, and I know that there's solution providers out there who pull this in, and you can add your COGS, and so you can get an idea of how your ASINs are performing. And the reason why, with your profitability, and the reason why that is because what I'm going to talk about next is just establishing that baseline for what your strategies are. X number of conversions generating Y amount of, X number of traffic generating Y percentage of sales, creating Z amount of profit. Well, in some cases, you may have an ASIN that's performing low in terms of traffic, but has high conversion and really high profit. So you're going to sell that all day long. It's not that big a deal. So let's jump to the next one.
Let me answer a couple of questions here. One, Dan, I appreciate your comment. He says he loves our faces, but would love the screen to be bigger. We did kind of find out, like as we jumped on that this is as big as we can make the screen that we're sharing, but I will upload the slides and I will upload the Excel spreadsheets that we're going to be showing you guys after this presentation, so that you guys can see these in detail. So don't get hung up on that. Peter, for the person who's asking about Vendor Central, if I typically sell on Vendor Central, could I still list my product for sale on Seller Central? And I obviously wouldn't get my session percentage data because it would only be based on my sales occurring. But would I still get some of this data that would be worthwhile? Is that a reason to kind of be selling on 3P?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of brands that will go 3P and Vendor Central because there's some data that you can get in Vendor Central that you can't get in Seller Central. So having those two accounts is really important. And there's also the aspect of, as brands continue to move to Seller Central and Amazon retail, they're really only interested in buying and selling your head selection, so that top 20% of your catalog. They're moving away from buying a brand's complete catalog. And so what do you do with the remaining 80%? I mean, that's not necessarily the number, but let's just say, the remaining 80% of your catalog. Do you leave it to resellers, or do you create your own Seller Central account and start selling that product as well? And there's also the strategy of creating your own Seller Central account so you can create what's called your shell ASINs. So you go through brand registry, you create all your enhanced brand content, and then you let your FBA partners or resellers that you're working with have the benefits of your enhanced brand content and really optimized detail pages. And that way, you're not letting your brand content, your brand messaging be controlled by resellers. You're the one that's in control of it. So there's a lot of reasons why you as a brand would want to have a third-party selling account through Seller Central. And the data is also one of them. You can get that reporting from there.
Yeah. Another whole presentation if we wanted to. All right, let's go into the strategy here.
Let's do it. ASIN strategy. So the important thing is that this isn't necessarily the strategy. It is a strategy. And the reality of it is that majority of sellers don't have a strategy, meaning that their ASINs are going to perform at a minimum or within a range. So traffic. The reality of what we're doing here is it doesn't matter. Every seller that's listening to this right now, you're all competing for the same thing, and that's customers, that's traffic. And so you need to make sure that your products are being looked at. If they're not, then no one's going to buy it. There's no software, no magic bullet. There's nothing out there that will generate sales if you're not getting traffic. So you need to be looking at your listings and saying, okay, I need to make sure that my traffics are generating X amount of sessions per month. I like to start with a minimum of 1,000. The reason why I like to start with 1,000 is because it's really easy math. And if you are generating a 10% conversion, you're going to be selling 100 units a month. And 100 units a month isn't necessarily a lot. Some people it is, some people it isn't, but it's a good starting place. And then if you have your profit built in, like I talked about that, then you can start to see how much profit you're bringing in, and you can start to work backwards. So you know that if your traffic, your listings are generating 1,000 sessions a month at a 10% conversion, you're going to be selling 100 units a month times whatever the ASP or your profit, your net profit. You're going to have the ability to really figure out how your business is performing.
And this is where the backwards math comes into play, right? This is where the mathematics come in, that if you know the sessions for a product, you know the conversion for a product, you know the profit for a product, you can almost guess what your sales are going to be, right?
To be honest, you wouldn't be guessing. If you're doing this on a regular basis and you build a model and you have what's called your run rate, you should be able to see how well your catalog is performing and work from the goal backwards and know approximately when and how much you're going to hit your goal by. When I was at Amazon, our team, I would be able to calculate, okay, it's April and I'm on track to hit my goal or I'm on track to miss my goal by the end of the year. And as we're looking at our catalog and the collective catalog of the sellers that we're working with, seeing how those products are performing and then working backwards from it to get an idea of, I'm way off track. I'm not going to hit my goal, or I'm on track and I'm going to hit my goal, probably around week 48 or 49.
Well, and this is kind of the aha moment for a lot of sellers, because if you say I want to do $100,000 of sales a day in Q4, or I want to do $1 million during the month of December, you've got to have enough ASINs with enough profit and enough traffic and a good enough conversion rate to be able to back that up. Yep. And so you can't just say I want it and go with what I call the hope strategy, right? The hope strategy of I hope I get the sales from Amazon. Like if you don't have prior year history, it's a little harder to know exactly how, if I have last year's Q4 data, it's easy for me to see what kind of growth in my sessions I'm going to naturally get. But you're making decisions today about how much inventory to buy, how much risk to take, and that's going to all peel out to the total amount of gross sales that you're going to be able to generate. Yep. And so I just want to reiterate, because I think it's important and it's something you and I make sure that sellers don't get hung up on. It doesn't mean if you have less than 1,000 sessions, you should get rid of a product. It doesn't mean if your conversion rate is less than 10%, it's bad. It's just that you've got to establish a baseline, and this is for simple math, right? If your baseline is 500 sessions and a 5% conversion, then you just redo this math with those numbers, and you can see what your projected sales for the year are, and then you can look and see, okay, if I can increase my conversion from 5% to 10% with my current traffic, I'm going to generate this amount of sales instead of what I was projecting. And so that's what's important for sellers to really get out of this, is that the data and the answers are there. It's just a matter of them going and looking to find it.
The reason why having this strategy, this baseline is so important is because all of your ASINs have a life cycle. And at some point, you need to be able to identify where they are in that life cycle. Meaning, if you have an ASIN that's generating a certain amount of sessions month over month, and it's decreasing, is it because that ASIN is old and there's a new version of whatever that's come out, or it's gotten so popular that there's 1,000 other sellers that are selling almost the exact same thing, like apple slicers? So you need to know what's going on with your catalog so that you can start to make really good decisions based on the data, as opposed to saying, I don't know, it's not selling anymore. Maybe I should just run some sponsored products at it. Or I need to spend $500 and optimize the listing. And the other thing that you need to know is the reality of how your catalog is performing and how much of your capital is tied up in that torso and tail selection. Because if you have money tied up in your inventory and it's with the wrong inventory, you're not going to win.
Yeah, and that's what you and I were, as we were preparing for this, you and I were talking about that, and specific to variations. And if you're in clothing where you have size variations and color variations, you can lock yourself up into a lot of inventory. And so this is where you can really kind of understand how much inventory do you need to put into a small shirt versus an extra large shirt, or a black color versus a pink color, right? All right, so let's get into the heart of this. Like, let's talk about where do we start?
Yep. All right. It's big. Yes. So I like to tell my clients that you need to start with getting 1,000 sessions a month, 500 sessions. Really, it's up to you, but you want to at least have a baseline of how much you should be driving traffic to your listing every single month. Once you have that baseline, then it's going to be easier for you to start identifying which ASINs you need to start advertising. So sponsored products, headline search, off Amazon advertising. So, Instagram, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. Just careful with Facebook. Want to be, don't do anything crazy out there. I know Amazon's been kind of tightening down on things like that. Sorry about my dog barking in the background if you hear it. But you want to start with 1,000. I like 1,000. It's a good amount. You got to look at the collective of what Amazon drives in terms of traffic. In Q4 last year, I think they drove 174 million unique visitors. So you're thinking 174 million unique visitors. what's your small percentage within your catalog?
Right. And this is where Nick says, hey, look, in perspective, he has two products that have, he has two products out of 2,000 that have over 1,000 sessions, and he's still doing 500K. So it's not to say that if you don't hit these numbers, you can't be successful.
Correct.
But I would bet if we dug into Nick's numbers, and this is where I kind of go back to like, okay, Nick, that's just one of your numbers. It also looks at like how many do you have at 700 or 800? And what are the conversion rates of those numbers? Right. And like, that's what's important. Right. That's what's important for you to be looking at, is this kind of holistically, is these are not hard, fast numbers that say, if you're not doing 1,000 session, your product sucks. Like, that's not what we're saying at all. But I would guess of the 2,000 products that you sell on Amazon, you have a head, a torso, and a tail. And how much of your capital are you locking up into the different parts of that? And what I really want to kind of jump into, can we jump into an example here, Peter?
You got it? You driving it?
Yeah. Awesome. I guess I was just asking if you were ready.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think it's better to look at the report and kind of have an understanding of the data that you're looking at and how to start making some decisions. Because most sellers look at their business and say, my best performing ASIN is the one that's generating the most money. And I argue that that's not necessarily the case. I mean, sure, it's driving a lot of money, or hopefully it's driving a lot of money. Hopefully it's driving a lot of profit, because I touched on it a couple of minutes ago. The winners in this Amazon game, the marketplace era, if you will, are the brands and the sellers that can generate the most positive cash flow so that they can continue to reinvest in the right inventory.
Okay, so let me give kind of a this is a real business report from Amazon.
Yep.
It's a client. He knows that we're using it.
Yep.
What we've done is we've kind of normalized the data, so you don't see you're not going to see the actual ASIN, or you're not going to see the titles, right? We're not going to give his products away. Right. And this is the actual report, the business report by child that we downloaded. And I have 8 parent ASINs, and then there's up to 10 color variations per parent, depending on the parent.
Yep.
And this is the spreadsheet that Peter uses. So I pasted the information into Peter's spreadsheet.
This is not how it's downloaded. It just comes down as a CSV file. I always put headers and filters up there, and I like to reverse the headers with the black and white. So you have to do that yourself.
Yeah. Or you could use, actually, we're going to give away Peter's template. And so if you want to, you can actually download the CSV and you can copy and paste the fields into the template that we give you. And you can, I understand that it's small and it's not readable. We're going to give you guys the actual slides so you can see it, but I'll keep blowing this up and hopefully that will help.
That's a little better.
Okay.
Yep.
So hopefully that helps. I kind of blew that up. And so what we've done is we've built we've built filters into here. So, if you want, you can actually come and you can just look at parent 1 or just look at parent 2. And so I guess, Peter, this is my numbers. Walk me through, if I was your client, walk me through what you would do with this spreadsheet and how you would start looking at it.
First thing I would do is I would sort column D. That's the session. That's your traffic. Sort it in descending order, so largest to smallest.
All right.
Just highlight. Nope. Stop. Cancel. And then click on yep, there you go. Click on that. And it should, descending. There you go. Close it. And now it's going to show you, here's the catalog. So you can see the best performing ASIN in the trailing 30 days has received 838 sessions. Not very good. Less than 1,000.
Yep. But there's obviously and these are all collectively here parent number 1.
Correct. Yep. So this is one product, and that color, that's the most popular color in terms of traffic. So the first thing you do is you look at how the ASIN is performing in terms of traffic. And then if you scroll over a little bit, and if you're a brand owner, you want to pay or a reseller, you want to just kind of glance at column H to see what your buy box percentage is. If you're a brand owner, you want 100%, 99%. If you're a reseller, you're going to want it as close to 100 as you can. But here's the unit session percentage, column K. That is your sales conversion. So this ASIN is only generating 7.5%. So 8 sales out of 10. Out of 100. And so the thing that's interesting is you look at this, and oftentimes I'll kind of hide some of these columns so I can get the unit session percentage next to the session, so I can actually see what's going on.
So you said get the unit session percentage next to.
Yeah. So if you wanted, you don't need to do it now, but you could just move it around so that you could hide columns.
So you want to look at sessions and unit session percentage next to each other?
Yeah.
All right. I'll blow this back up.
Okay, great.
I know this is hard for people to see, so I'm blowing this up as much as it'll let me go.
Yep. So you can see, there you go. Okay, so in this parent 1, so rows 2 through 7, we've got parent 1, and I'm looking at the screen here also. And you can see the sessions. The best selling product or the best performing in terms of traffic has 7.5%, but the best converting traffic is color 2, generating half the amount of traffic. So people are looking for the first color, going to it, and then seeing the second and buying that more than they're buying the first.
Gotcha. And that's because Amazon is typically going to put your highest seller from a volume perspective as your default color, right?
Yep, exactly. So their search is going to show the one that's got the most activity around it.
So the question is like on parent number 1, because like here on color number 7, I only have a 3% conversion.
Yep.
So am I looking at this as at parent 1? I guess I could filter here by parent 1 and just look at all of parent 1.
Sure, if you want. So I think where you're going with this, you've got a 3% conversion. So with a parent-child variation, what you're looking at, you can't just say, oh, I go and optimize my detail page and I will increase my conversion on that particular color. Probably not. It's just probably an unpopular color compared to the rest.
Right.
And so why you need to know that is if you don't understand and you're not tracking this on a regular basis, and you know that your ASIN generates approximately 200 sessions a month with a 3% conversion, if you're not seeing that month over month and monitoring it month over month, then you're not going to really understand how your business is performing. And the reason why that's so important is because if you're in any kind of parent-child variation, you want to make sure that your inventory levels reflect the demand. And so that color, you're probably not going to want to buy, 10x the inventory that you're getting with color 1 and 2.
Right. So looking here at color 6, that doesn't necessarily mean if I can drive more traffic to it, I'm going to sell more because of the percentage. It just means that when people are looking for that color, they're buying it.
Perhaps. It is possible, though, that there may be something on the detail page that's driving people to that color as opposed to the other. So you want to make sure that you're checking that, because it could be that the color 7 that has a 3% conversion has the wrong image associated to it, or has a bad image, or there was a negative review around, don't buy the red, it's really pink.
This is a red flag. This is a red flag that tells you go find something else. Go look into this more, right?
Absolutely. You always want to be looking at this and saying, why? Okay, so collectively, half of these ASINs are performing at more of a 10% range. What are we looking at? 8 ASINs, 9 ASINs?
Yep.
You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So almost half are performing at more like a 10%. Some are even higher than that. So what's up with this one? Why is the 3% performing? What is going on with color 7? Why is it? And so what you want to be looking at is you just want to have an understanding. And what I think is so important is you need to be able to answer that question. And so you need to look at this and be monitoring it in such a way so you can go and say, oh, well, I know color 7 is, the pink color, and it's not popular all the time, and it's going to go up in the spring and it's going to go down in the fall. I'm not.
But you're saying that you at least know why, and it's possible that there's something here that for the conversion to be so bad, it's possible that maybe you're doing something on sponsored ads that's driving the wrong traffic because you're not explaining the color correctly, right? So depending on how you have your ads set up, I mean, there's lots of different reasons why this could be occurring. Yeah. And as you notice, what I've started to do is I've started to kind of color code this. So we're still, we were under 1,000 sessions. So all of our sessions are going to be something that we feel can be improved, right? There's more traffic that can be driven to all of our ASINs across the board. But there's clearly some family ASINs or some child ASINs. I mean, and this is a great example. I'm probably doing just as much profit with this color as I am with this one.
Correct.
And so if I can ramp up the sales of color number 2 and keep a 13% conversion, that's better than ramping up, color 1 with only a 7.5% conversion. And so this could be where maybe you want to do enhanced brand content to show the color palette of all of the colors. Maybe you want to, look at, like you said, look at the reviews or look at the Q&A.
You also may want to look at color 7 and color 9 and stop selling them, because giving Amazon customers, any customer, every single product color under the sun, they can't make up their mind.
Right. Or maybe you sell out of those and you just don't reorder.
Yeah. Having a bazillion variations, a bazillion colors. It's not that like, oh, if I go create more colors, I'm going to sell more products. That's not it. Not at all. And so oftentimes customers won't buy it because they can't make up their mind. So if you narrow the amount of inventory or the amount of offers that you have available for those children variations, you'll probably sell more.
And in that same regard, Peter, could you basically liquidate those, like maybe move those from a price perspective so that they're cheaper? And then just remember that you might actually increase your sales velocity on those because they're cheaper and just not reorder them.
Now, if you've got a large inventory, you may say, you know what, I'm going to just blow these out. I'm going to do a lightning deal or some other kind of promotion, which can help drive traffic to the rest of your listings or the rest of your variations. It also create that halo effect. What that halo effect means is when you have a nice spike in traffic and a nice spike in sales conversion, if your listing was performing at a 20% conversion and then you ran a promotion and it went up and you saw a 40% conversion during the promotion, well, as it starts to decrease or once the promotion is over, rather than that conversion going back to the 20, it tends to level out more like in the 30, right? So you get this halo. So it was promotion, it's up and then down, and then it continues to stabilize. And so you have that halo effect. A lot of people from Amazon have talked about that at some of the Amazon conferences. You'll get that halo effect also overall for your account from Q4 to Q1.
Right. So a couple of questions came in.
Sure.
Unit session percentage, that essentially is conversion rate?
That's your sales conversion. That's the number of units sold to the number of sessions.
Okay. And then somebody else said, I typically calculate in and use revenue per session.
Revenue per
So my guess is he's taking the sessions and he's dividing it by the order product sales.
Sure.
Generate revenue per session.
Yep. You could do that.
Yeah. It's just a different way to slice and dice this. But this goes to show, like here, for 485 sessions, this seller is generating $2,200 in sales versus, here, I can get rid of this.
Yeah.
Shrink that down. You can see, like, this is a great example of, this is 197 session that's only generating 270. So even in the calculation, like you were talking about, John, revenue per session, the revenue per session is just not really good. Like it's not good. And so these are where you really have to question, are these even colors and things that you want to continue to sell? Now, I would
also be looking at the return rate on those.
Look at the return rate?
Yeah, because they may be lower. They may be colors that somebody gets and they're like, I don't like this color, and they return it. So keep an eye on your concessions for that.
So I know it's hard because you don't have everything on this particular seller. I'm trying to shrink everything down to fit on our screen. Um, when you're also looking at this, does it scream at you that he needs to focus on optimizing his listing? I mean, there's clearly some listing optimization that needs to occur, right? Because these are all to the lower side across the board for the session percentage.
Yeah, the only percentage there that I'm happy with is color 6 at 17%. And I would say that that's your benchmark. And that is where every ASIN needs to be performing, and that's your low end. And so I do think that there's probably some detail page optimization that can go on with this, because ideally you're looking for a 25-30% conversion. The brands that I see and the resellers that I see that are driving the most revenue are seeing 40 to 60% conversion, where they've got their detail pages just dialed in. They really are able to show what the product does very quickly. The customer can come on, they engage, they're interacting with the page. They know that it's what they want. They know it's going to solve their problem. So you're looking for that minimum. For me personally, in the businesses that I've worked with my own account, I want a 25% conversion. And
okay, so I just resorted this by unit session percentage, right? Because it's a different way. Yep. It's a different way to look at it. And obviously, the ones that are performing really well from a conversion perspective just don't have I don't know if they have enough sessions for you to even calculate and say that that's a trend, but these would be the ones where you really want to spend your effort and drive traffic, right?
Yeah. And that's when you look at this, your ASINs that are performing above 20%, in 67 sessions in the trailing 30 days, no one is looking at the catalog that people buy more frequently. Yeah. So this is where I'm looking at this and saying, you got a traffic problem. Theoretically, if you were to drive more traffic to this listing, you would be selling more units. So that parent 3, color 5, if you hit 100 sessions, you're selling 60 units.
Yeah, and it's not to believe that that session percentage won't go down, but even if that session percentage goes down, your baseline, you know what you're looking for, and as you start to drive sponsored ads, you may be able to at that point, find something that's kind of targeting in at this particular parent and this particular color. Yep. So that when you take this from 67 to 167, 567, 1,067, does your conversion rate drop from 28% to 23%? It's going to go down, right? We know it's going to go down. But these are the ones where, it's just a matter of like, these are great numbers. There's just not enough volume coming in from the session standpoint for it to be driving enough business for your for you. And Dan brings up a good point. He says it could be a new item, right? It could be a new item or a new variation or something like that. We don't know all the details, but these are the questions you need to ask as you're looking at this. And if you have this report and you're able to kind of color code this report, and then you come back to it each month, you have a baseline to look at it and say, okay, it's now a month old. How is it doing? My sessions went up, my session percentage went down, but it's still in an acceptable range. Or now I no longer have a traffic problem. I need to go back and work on this more from a conversion perspective.
Yeah, you want to look at this as a snapshot in time. You want to look at this collectively over a period of time. So you don't want to take the range and just extend it. You want to download this report for the month of September, download this report for the month of August, download this report for the month of July. And then you want to look at parent 3, color 5. And it's possible that the sessions are at 5 right now because you're out of stock, which is horrible. Never go out of stock. But so you want to be looking at month over month, because if it is month over month and it's 5 sessions in July with a 60% conversion, 5 or approximate sessions in August with a 60% conversion, and then September with the same thing, that's a data set that says when people go to this, they buy it. So more traffic to it. So having it just once, looking at this report just once, not necessarily going to be the right thing for you to do, but having it from a consistent standpoint where you're able to compare time frames to be able to see how those ASINs are performing is really going to be the most important aspect of this. Because it could be a brand new listing, like the person just mentioned. Yeah, it could be a brand new listing that you just launched, and you're letting it get organic traffic, and you're just seeing if anyone's going to it just organically. And if they are, and you're getting a 60% conversion.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome, because then clearly you built your detail page in a way that's like people like it. So that
if you've got and if you've just launched a product and you have 20 sessions and you have a really crappy detail page, and you have a 30% conversion, like these are all just signs, right? There's signs as to what the opportunity is. There's signs to what the opportunity is. So let me just ask the audience, like, does this make sense to you? Is this something you guys think you can use in your business? Like, I think what's really cool about our session today is like, this isn't hey, this is a really cool report and now you need to buy our course and we'll show you how to use it. Like, this is the report. This is how to use it. This is how consultants like Peter will analyze your business. You can do this yourself. You can use third parties to do this. But I think what's really important is like you have to be doing this. And I think like when we presented this at our Resonate conference, the number of larger sellers in the room who had never really thought about their catalog in this way was rather crazy. And as you and I have continued to kind of talk throughout the year at different conferences and events, we've come to see that like this is the report that starts to answer your questions. And so you don't need to come and say, is this working? Is that working? You need to be looking at your data and saying, I know what kind of problem I have. I know how to go and solve this problem, or at least I know what type of trend I'm looking for. So it looks to a lot of people are saying this makes sense.
Yeah. The thing that, a lot of sellers, the difference between the sellers that actually make it and survive more than a few months after launching is getting into this data. Because if you're just running willy-nilly and you're not actually looking at how your business is performing, you're going to be gone. And I think there's an article in Marketplace Pulse, a great website. If you're not paying attention to what's going on in the marketplace era, which is what I'm calling what we're in right now, the marketplace era, is Marketplace Pulse, great website, a lot of really good insight onto what the trends are that's going on in the marketplace. But something like 80% of the sellers that they're gone after 6 months after they've registered. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me because the number of sellers, I mean, listen, like there's a lot of like, I guess, professional sellers like us, but there's a lot of people who just log on to sell one thing. Right. And they create an account for those type of reasons. I put Peter's email address up. Peter, make sure I spelled it all right.
Commerce, is that a zero or one PK at 180commerce.com.
Yeah. So it's PK at 180commerce.com. Listen, I know Dan said, I need to hire somebody to do it. This is what Peter does, right? It's a component of what he does, but it's part of what he does. And so, I'd pitch his service for him. But if you have questions or you want somebody to do something like this for you, then that's fine. So let's look a couple questions here. What is the best way to drive traffic? We have less than 1,000 sessions each month, several items. However, conversion is near 40%. That's awesome.
Great.
So tips for driving conversion.
Sponsored products. And if you haven't started with a sponsored products campaign, start with the automated campaign and then start using the manuals. If you need help finding keywords to put in there, merchant words is a great tool.
No, all you have to use is Ignite. It's all built into there.
Ignite as well. Yeah, exactly.
So let me kind of address that a bit as Ken's answer a bit as well. And that is to say that we have a lot of people who call us up and they say Ignite doesn't work, right? They're running sponsored ads and they say Ignite doesn't work. Yep. And what we come to find is there's really like 3 or 4 reasons why sponsored product ads are not working. And they expect a tool like Ignite to fix the core problem that they have. The number one reason why sponsored ads don't work is because you didn't set up your campaigns correctly, meaning you have too many ASINs in a particular ad group or campaign, or you created too many keywords. And so therefore you have a bunch of content that's overlapping. You have a bunch of content that's that's driving itself to a point that isn't giving you the result that you're looking for. And so when people come to us and tell us that the tool isn't working, 90% of the time, it's one of those two reasons. And so if you're running sponsored ads, but you're not getting the results that you're looking for, go back to the core of like your sponsored ads and look at your campaign and look at your keywords. We had a client who came to us and said, it's not working. And we went and we looked and they said, well, I've got 20,000, I have 20,000 impressions and no clicks. Well, all of the impressions, we looked at this yesterday. They were selling a coffee product and all of their impressions were for the term espresso machine. But they weren't selling an espresso machine, but they had created a keyword on a broad match called espresso. And so therefore, Amazon was showing their ads for espresso machine and they were looking at it going, why am I getting no clicks? Well, you weren't getting any clicks because you didn't have the right keywords. Right. And so this is where like the data is there for you to dig into, know your ASINs and what the problem is, to know your sponsored ad and what the problem is. But like you have to be able to go in and actually start to uncover that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where it's getting so complicated. That's why you need to have some data to drive the decisions that you're making around your business.
All right. One more question here. Are the high session percentages realistic?
Yep. If you have a parent ASIN with 10 color design variations, are people clicking to see the different colors before making a decision deciding? It's hard to say if they're clicking through the different colors or the different swatches before. But high session percentages are very realistic. 25, 50,000 sessions per month. Absolutely. Those are your best sellers. You're going to see those in the sub 5,000, sub 1,000 bestseller rank. Absolutely. It's the one thing you want to keep in mind is that you want to be driving a particular session amount to each ASIN, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the number one product in the category. You just recognize that it's driving at a particular level that's driving conversion, that's generating enough money for you, and get your ASINs all performing at that level, and then go find some more ASINs. I know a couple of sellers.
That's right. And that's Peter. That's why we were telling people, don't get hung up on numbers.
Yeah.
Don't get hung up on 1,000 sessions. That's just an example and a number. Figure out your own baseline. Figure out the numbers that are working for you and your business.
Yeah, exactly. And a number of sellers are really, how do I get to that number one spot? Well, you may not want to get to the number one spot because when you're the number one spot, you're just targeted by so many competitors. I know a number of sellers that are doing north of 5 million a year happily with ASINs that sit in the 5 to 10,000 range. So keep an eye on that traffic. You don't necessarily need to be getting into that 50,000 sessions per month to have a really good business on Amazon.
All right, I'm going to make this the last question, and then I'm going to issue a challenge to everybody that's here. So this kind of came up earlier. Somebody else kind of said this, like, hey, Amazon has all these business reports, but they don't really tell us how to use them effectively. So, the question is, and I think it's a good one. The question is like, is there an effective guide to Amazon business reports?
Well, I don't think, I being a former Amazonian, I think Amazon gets a lot of bad raps for what they do in Seller Central. I think that they do a pretty good job of explaining what the basics are for the reports and getting the knowledge to interpret the data. That's just you taking some time to understand what traffic is, what conversion is, and there's lots of good books that you don't necessarily, or books or webinars or online resources that you can get from getting that knowledge and understanding it. It's not that Amazon Seller Central needs to be business school. So I'm not saying that it's not bad or agreeing with you that it's bad. There are challenges about it, but I think when it comes to the reports, they do a pretty good job of explaining what they are. And then it's up to you to figure out how you interpret that data. Because as we saw earlier, somebody takes the same report and then uses it for a revenue percentage instead of the sales percentage. So having the baseline of understanding how to interpret the data is really the key, which you can get anywhere online.
Awesome. So if you like the content today, this is the quality and of the content that we really try to give at our Seller Labs Resonate conference. We're actually going to be announcing the conference in about a week. And so if you want to be on the first wave of people that get the announcement of the conference, you can go to sellerlabs.com/resonate. If you want to connect with Peter, You can get him at pk@180commerce.
Yep. Email me. Yep. You can find me on LinkedIn.
And let's do this. How about a LinkedIn challenge? Right?
Ooh, challenge. Yeah. What are we doing?
So Peter told me he wants to get more connections on LinkedIn. So go and connect with both Peter and I on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And we're going to take the 20th person that connects with Peter. So you're going to, it actually comes in chronological order. So you'll have to pay attention to who the 20th person is.
Okay.
And we'll take the 20th person that connects with me on LinkedIn. And we will we'll send them a prize. We have Seller Labs coffee mugs that we'll ship you. And so go and connect with us on LinkedIn. The 20th person. I did do that last time. So if you already connected with me, then I guess Peter will get more than me.
Go. Yeah.
I actually was telling Peter about that. So he was like, and if you like this content, right? If you like this content, what I ask you to do is share. Sharing this content is the best way for you to let us know that you liked this content, so that we know that this is the type of content that you guys want to see more of as we are doing more and more Facebook Lives. So there's a button below, wherever my finger is. There we go. There's a button below that says share. Share this content. Share it with a group that you're part of. Share it with a group of your friends. And really, that's what gives us the love and tells us that you loved what we shared with you. And we thank you for your time today. Thank you, Peter, for joining us. We appreciate it.
A lot of fun. Hope to be back.
Great. Everybody have a great day.